This is your City Council Roundup, a recap of what's happening at City Hall with John Ongaro. The views expressed in this program are solely of those of the host and not necessarily those of the radio station or its partners.
Before we get to the drama of last night, I thought it was appropriate to start today with a word of thanks. Last night, City Manager Norm Gale announced another retirement of a senior leader in administration and a leader in our community, to be frank. For over 30 years, Karen Lewis has held a number of high-profile and very important positions within the corporation, and last night her retirement was announced. After more than 30 years with the city, starting her career in 1994, currently the general manager of the city's Development and Emergency Services Department, Ms. Lewis also previously was the director of Corporate Strategic Services and included overseeing communications and strategic initiatives like crime prevention and the drug control strategy. She has done and led important work in our community, and I know her leadership will be well missed. She retires in October, and Ms. Lewis, on behalf of the entire city of Thunder Bay, thank you for your commitment, your loyalty, and service to your community. So before we get into the big story of the night last night, we're going to jump ahead in the meeting because I really need you to remember this part. A motion was brought forward last night by Councillor Trevor Gatuga that said the following: we recommend that the city councillors' publicly funded council accounts shall no longer be utilized to attend functions such as community dinners, breakfasts, and retirement celebrations, with the exception of the duties assigned to the acting mayor and where the acting mayor budget is also assigned. What that means is that Councillor Gatuga doesn't think that we, the taxpayers, should be using the budget from councillors to buy tickets to functions. That's pretty much what it was. We should be paying out of our own pocket, he said. Well, that certainly opened a can of worms last night. For over 45 minutes around the table, we went on debating whether or not councillors' budget should cover the cost of their attendance to outside events. It seems to me that the bigger issue for the councillor last night, which came out later in the discussion, was the 12 tickets to Norm Gale's retirement dinner that he has an issue with. If I was to put two and two together, that's what this was about. So there we were once again watching people bicker at each other and take loosely shrouded shots at one another over their expenses. And at the same time, once again, had the city clerk jumping through hoops to find out what has been spent in the last couple of years from city councilors' budgets on dinner tickets, because she's got nothing else to do. Well, as she always done, the clerk delivered with grace and class. Hold on to your hats, kids. We've spent less than $200 in the past year on these things. $200 for 13 people on a budget of several $100 million. Kind of sounds useless, doesn't it? So I have to wonder that at what point of that whole discussion, if you've listened to this program before, you know it's coming. I have to wonder if they even discussed what they had for dinner last night, because nobody talks about that, Councillor Gatuga. You had a Caesar salad in a box, a chicken burger, and assorted flavors of bubbly, sparkling water that you ate for free before the meeting. Did you want to talk about the cost of that, too, for most of your meetings? Hopefully the chicken was worth it because it came free to you like the dinner ticket does. And I sure hope you got your favorite flavor of bubbly that came in a 12-pack. Yeah, those are specifics because that's what you ate last night before the dinner. And how dare you question spending $25 on a retirement ticket? Seems a little more ridiculous, doesn't it? The motion lost, but it's an important part about what's about to come. Now let's get to the big ticket. I'm getting about as tired of talking about the turf facility as you are hearing about it. I completely get it. To be completely honest with you, it's nauseating. But here we are again for the second time in as many years talking about a building for 0.5% of our population so that they can play something indoors in the winter. So it was showtime. Began with city manager addressing the council last night on how we got here and what needs to happen. He told the council to rely on the cost estimates in this report, and that if you support the RFP, be ready to support the commitment to follow through, because they didn't the last time. Remember? He ended by saying it is important to either commit or not. And away we went. There was a deputation last night from Soccer Canada and Soccer Ontario with, of course, success stories and propaganda about the importance of a soccer facility. But to be frank with you, I'm going to spend zero time on that entire discussion because it was useless. The two deputants were there to talk about a turf facility in the city of Vaughan, in the GTA, bragging about how they had 1 million people use the facility in a year, 98% usage. Well, if somebody can show me how Vaughan and Thunder Bay have absolutely anything to do with one another, I'll be happy to listen. Vaughan has 400,000 people in an area with 5.9 million people. Thunder Bay has 120,000 people in a region the size of France that has 280,000 people. Show me the relevance to this. There is none. There is simply not a comparison. And the fact that we even entertained listening to that deputation was embarrassing. It's called propaganda. So here are the facts. The turf facility is $37 million for the building. The site work does not include rebuilding the disaster that is the auditorium parking lot. That price tag is $5.5 million. That makes $42.7 million. Follow the bouncing ball, kids, because this is going to get good. Remember that number. To make the facility run, we'll have to hire 12 new full-time people. That includes a new position called a sport development coordinator, whatever that is, booking coordinators, customer service people, and 3 people to operate and maintain the building. To build it, we're scrapping a very well-used and exceptional baseball diamond. Remember that time when we were going to save the diamond, build it somewhere else? Not anymore. It's scrapped. It's getting bulldozed and not getting replaced. And round we went for over an hour for counselors to preach the gospel of Soccer Northwest and the need for a facility so that children can play. Even though we kept ignoring the price tag and the history around the table, we went where some counselors delivered speeches that sounded more like a Sunday homily than a political speech. At one point, Counselor Folds, yes, sir, I was picking up what you were laying down, went on to say how much he appreciates those that are against the proposal and that he's going to get a lot of angry emails, and then may or may not have quoted the concerns of a certain radio host a couple of times to say that he hears our concerns. Yet you, sir, are completely ignoring them, as you often do. Councillor Hamilton, who, as you know, I am a fan of and respect the hard work he has been putting into his job being the voice of reason, had a stern warning for council last night. If we say yes to this, we better be willing to say no to things like the waterfront trail to nowhere, prepare for extra expenses to take down Victoriaville, and council better be prepared to say no to things because we can't afford it. Even though with that speech, he ended saying he was in favor of this building. At that point, Councillor Gertuga again stepped in with, quote, let's get on with this. At the end of an hour, I guess his patience was out, but everyone in the room has the right to speak. And that doesn't mean that everyone did, because of course not. We knew where this was going. Why stick your neck out and just follow the person that's voting beside you? A couple of councillors were completely silent last night. But the highlight of the night came from Mark Bentz last night, who wonderfully asked again the actual cost of the building. Please listen to this. He explained that we have no partners. We have no funding. It's 100% the city's expense. So at what cost? Well, are you ready for this? The building is $37 million. $5.5 million for the site. We're at now $43 million. Of that, $19 million will be finance debt. The interest. What is the interest? Assuming the interest is 4% over 25 years, the cost of borrowing $19 million is $9.7 million. Your turf is now $52 million. As Councillor Bentz put it, the last building was scrapped. The Chapels building, remember? It was $37 million. 2 years later, we get an uglier building in the wrong location for $52 million. Somebody help me figure this out. How much will it cost you? Well, you can count on a tax increase of 0.7% just for the building. Once again, Councillor Gertuga took offense, as he often does, to anything Mark Bentz says, adding that the cost of borrowing to the price tag shouldn't even be mentioned. It was a complete shot at him because, as he put it, people, when they say how much they paid for a house, I paid $200,000 for a house, they don't say, but with interest over 25 years, it was $290,000. Well, sir, your argument once again is ridiculous. My tax dollars are not paying for a house. but my $26 a year and 0.7 increase is coming out of my pocket to pay for your legacy project. Whether you like it or not, $52 million is the total cost of the building. Hiding $9 million in interest is my money that you just signed away. But let me be very clear on some of the facts. I have not wavered once in agreeing that a facility is needed, but absolutely no one signed up for a $52 million turf facility. 3 years ago on this program, when Chapels came forward and the price tag was announced, I guessed that there would be, well, probably $50 million. At that time, I got countless calls from counselors and hate mail from soccer players that told me I didn't know what I was talking about. 3 years later, we're at $52 million. Here are the facts. Remember last year when the savior from Soccer Northwest came in with a sales pitch for a building he claimed was going to be $17 million because he knew a guy, and he knew a couple of guys that can build it for $17 million. Well, those guys forgot things like energy efficiency and, accessible washrooms. So much for $17 million, but your council took the bait. Because he knew a couple of guys. You told us at that time you could do it for less. What happened? You should absolutely, Soccer Northwest, be on the hook for the difference, period. Let me put this into perspective for you. This part may get confusing, so hear me out. Say you're a crafter. You love crafts. Keeps you busy, gives you things to do. You feel good doing it. Say you know 1,000 other crafters in the community that are just like you, but gosh, if only you had a place to do your crafts together. Well, I'm here to tell you that this city council is waiting for you. You're a special interest group that needs a space for yourselves, not the whole community. So if you approach the city now with a request for a $50 million facility to do crafts, precedent has been set. They'll build it for you. Don't worry. All special interest groups should be equal, right? How ridiculous does that sound? It's exactly what happened last night. Soccer Northwest pitched a $17 million building. Council took the bait, threw away a $33 million building at Chapels, and $1.5 million spent figuring out Chapels. It was $33 million. But Soccer Northwest said they can do it for less. Months later, the sham that was $17 million design is now $52 million. That's not 17, it's not 32, it's $52 million for a building with much less than what was at Chapels, not nearly as pretty, in a location that, well, there better not be a soccer game, a baseball game, and a show at the auditorium at the same time, all for 0.5% of the population. Don't be fooled. This is a legacy project, a legacy that arrogant counselors will proudly cut the ribbon to, where 90% of you listening right now will never step foot in that building. When can we do the same for the crafters? Soccer Northwest, also known as SNOW in many council meetings, sold this council a $17 million idea that has turned into $52 million. That is a fact. And that is the definition of being snowed. How appropriate. In 2 weeks, the decision will be ratified. You have 2 weeks to let your voice be heard, to do something, to say something to the councillors who preached fiscal responsibility. Where is it? $52 million, 0.7% on your taxes. This is the same group that argued over $200 in dinner tickets, remember? They also enjoyed a free dinner before the meeting and just dropped $52 million of your money. Counselors, you most definitely have been snowed. Sadly, those of us that voted for you for change have also been snowed. The motion passed 10-2.
Wow. That was intense, John. I think this is going to be talked about for days. This is going to be online, by the way, if you missed any part of this recap. I was particularly interested, and it caught my attention when the topic of the interest came up of well over $9 million.
That we don't want to talk about because we don't talk about the interest. But that's money. That's money that we're spending. Mm-hmm. And yes, we've had to debenture lots of things that we've paid interest on that serve the entire community.
you also said within a couple of weeks, maybe talk to your counselor in the next 2 weeks. Do you think any of that is going to affect? Like, should someone speak to their counselor and then all of a sudden...
You're setting me up to get into trouble.
Well, no, I'm just saying, is this result going to change because I spoke to a counselor?
I find this whole thing cowardly. I really do. Because why isn't anybody saying, hey, Soccer Northwest, you owe us $35 million? This was their idea.
And that's impossible, by the way.
Chapels should have been built by now.
Yeah.
We threw it in the garbage because these guys showed up with a pencil drawing, which might as well have been on the back of a napkin, and said, here, we can build it for 17. What happened? You can't blame the city for that. You can't blame administration for following design rules. You can't blame the laws for having accessible washrooms that you forgot.
That's fair. Yep.
But you told them 17 million. I can build it for less. Where's that? It's $52 million. Chapels was 33.
You brought up Councillor Benson, what he had said, and another thing that caught my attention last night was when he was talking about, we can go ahead and vote on this, but just know that there are other options.
Of course there are other options. And nobody will talk about those.
Yeah.
Councillors that are new, Etrini, Pascalino, Johnson, where are you in this? You were the ones that stepped up at election time saying, we're going to watch our... You have no money. You have none. If you think the past $11.7 million for Victoriaville demolition is going to be the price, you're dreaming.
Yeah,
I would be surprised if it's less than $20 million. Where's that extra 9 coming from? You have to build a police headquarters whether you like it or not. It's going to be $100 million. Yeah. Where are we going to get the money to pay for that? You and I are paying for it. And I'm telling you, this is, if you want to know what's going on in the city and why, God bless Shunya, people are looking to move out there because Shunya does smart things with their taxes. God bless them. Looking at this group, this is the worst group of spenders that I've ever seen. This is ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the need for a building. We need a building for kids to play in. I agree. You need a $52 million one? For what? Can you imagine what else we can do and the people we could help with $52 million?
Yeah. And one more thing before we wrap up, the comparison to the Vaughan.
Oh, gosh. Don't even.
That was very interesting last night. Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
With you throwing out the population numbers and what they can access.
Show me
I don't
how
think there was
they're
any
relevant.
comparison
Completely irrelevant. That was completely staged. We know where it came from. That was all. Look at how successful we are in Vaughan. 40 minutes outside of downtown Toronto. Well, no kidding, you're successful. You have 6 million people.
I also sensed that one had naming rights on that one, too.
Oh, for sure.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, we can sell this, too, because somebody's got to pay for the 12 employees that we're going to hire.
Mm-hmm. John, thank you. That is your special edition of the City Council Roundup about the indoor turf facility. A reminder, if you're looking for a recap, you can do it 2 ways. Go to our website in just a bit, 999thebay.ca, or you can text the word council to our T-Bay Talk and Text line, 807-344-8229. You'll get a direct link to the Council Roundup. John, thank you.
You've got 2 weeks to say something. Gets ratified first week of June.
Oh, June's going to be interesting as well.